Frank, it feels like we've been talking about Evander Kane off and on for months at this point, and not much traction because a couple weeks or a week ago, we're thinking he's going to sign a contract and be back in the league, and then use an NHL investigation. Everything gets delayed. What's the latest in this situation?
Yeah, it's definitely developing. There's something in the works. I believe at this point, the easiest way to describe it is that I believe the NHL is in receipt of the findings from the independent investigation that occurred that Evander Kane participated in. And they're in the process right now, as we speak, of reviewing that information and then determining what the next steps are, if any. The entire time, Evander Kane has been free to sign with any team, but as we've reported, teams have sort of been reluctant to do so because of any potential discipline that may come. He's already been suspended for 21 games this season for a COVID-19 protocol violation. You would think that if there was another confirmed by this investigation, that a suspension could be lengthy. No team wants to sign a player to then have him sit out for the next 40 games. So that's what teams have been waiting on. I do believe that there will be clarity, if not today, then tomorrow, that this is imminent and coming. And Tim Peel has been out there in front of this story the entire time. You know him as our rules analyst that appears on Daily Faceoff, but also, I guess, a little bit of a newsbreaker as well, because I do believe that Tim is correct in his reporting that if there is no discipline that's coming, that Evander Kane will choose the Edmonton Oilers, and that will be his spot. So that's sort of where things stand at the moment as the NHL continues to work through the process to come to a final resolution on what's next for Evander Kane.
Our own Tim Peel, hockey insider, and Tim had some nice help in a piece that I had yesterday we worked on together talking about the Arundel incidents. So this has been a strange year in terms of general managers around the league, Frank. I mean, how many places have been filled? Montreal gets their guy in Kent Hughes. The Canucks get Patrick Alvin. He's in place as a general manager, but there's still a couple openings out there with the Ducks and the Blackhawks. Are they getting any closer to filling their vacant GM slots?
So things are actually picking up quite a bit in both Anaheim and now Chicago. Now, the two things that tie these two teams together, it's been a methodical process since Bob Murray and Stan Bowman both resigned for two separate incidents and scandals that cost them their jobs. And in this case, they both these organizations were going saying, hey, should we institute a president of hockey ops position and then hire a general manager? What they've both determined is it's going to be one all-encompassing position at the general manager role that oversees everything in hockey operations. Now, things have picked up quite a bit on the Anaheim front, which was moving very slowly. I'm told that 2 weeks ago, the Ducks had interviewed all of their three internal candidates for the position, including interim Jeff Solomon, as well as Martin Madden and Dave Nonis. They're two assistant GMs there, plenty of experience. But here's where it gets interesting. The Ducks have interviewed, I'm told, between 5 and 6 external candidates in the last week alone. There are more names on their list, I believe as many as 10 or 12 that they want to get to. Still sorting out the names. And what's interesting from the Ducks perspective, it's sort of been very quiet, very tight-lipped. One of the tests, if you will, of this process has been if your name gets out there, we're going to be really curious to see how, why, and just to tuck that away as some information for the Ducks. The Blackhawks and their CEO, Danny Wirtz, mentioned in a release on Wednesday that they are beginning a process to search for their next general manager. I'm told the time frame for the Blackhawks is they hope to have someone in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Kyle Davidson, their interim, will be a strong candidate, but it's anyone's guess at this point as to where the Blackhawks go after they've begun a methodical process. They're trying to think outside the box. They're trying to do things a little bit differently. The Ducks are as well. I'm told that they had some females as well that were also part of their long list of people to talk to. So both the Ducks and the Blackhawks, after it looked like they might get through the entire season with the interims that they have in place, both are very hopeful that they'll have someone in the role before the trade deadline, and big decisions loom for both of those clubs.
Enough of the front office talk. Let's flip back into the locker room and something that we never like to hear. It sounds like there was a scary injury situation with a Pittsburgh Penguins player. What have you heard about it, Frank?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That would be Drew O'Connor, the Pittsburgh Penguins forward. He actually suffered a collapsed lung after their game on January 15th. He's been out with what to this point had been an undisclosed injury. And if you notice, he only played 536 in that game in San Jose. Got to Vegas during the game, had trouble breathing. Got to Vegas and got treatment. They discovered the collapsed lung, got him all the treatment that he needed. And I think what's really interesting about the scenario and what had some people initially worried was that Drew O'Connor entered the COVID-19 protocol on January 4th. And so the initial concern right away was, is this injury, this collapsed lung, at all related to COVID? The answers from all doctors to this point has been no, that this is just a total separate occurrence. Sometimes these injuries happen. It can be as a result of a hit. No one is exactly sure how or why, but it's sort of been a long road back for Drew O'Connor in the last couple of weeks. He had to be driven from Vegas all the way back to Pittsburgh, a 2-day ordeal. The Penguins are hoping that he can begin skating here in the next couple of days and be back in the lineup in the next few weeks. But a collapsed lung certainly raises some eyebrows and has people nervous. We're all glad that Drew O'Connor is okay and on the mend for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I've driven to and from St. Louis to Vegas more times than I want to count. I can't imagine having to go further all the way to Pittsburgh on top of the scary situation that he has faced. So let's flip to Canada's capital and the Ottawa Senators. And they recently locked up defenseman Nick Holden to a new deal on Thursday. I love that. I think it's a smart move by GM Pierre Dorion, especially because Holden brings some leadership and some steadiness to the blue line and a team that could frankly use it. Could another pending Ottawa UFA get a new deal shortly?
Actually, there's a couple that I believe that they're interested in re-signing. One we talked to about previously this week in our blue paint segment, and that would be Anton Forsberg. I think the Sens have been thrilled with what they've seen from Forsberg. His name has popped up in conversations among other teams that are looking for netminders. The Sens would consider re-signing him. And the other one is Nick Paul. I think there's been considerable interest in Nick Paul as well up front. Teams love his work ethic and what he brings to the ice. Both those players on inexpensive pending UFA deals. So Paul and Forsberg, the Sens will begin at some point some exploratory conversations to see if they can keep those guys. And if not, given the interest that's out there, you could certainly see those players added to our trade targets list later on as we get closer to the March 21st deadline. Mike, this has been another edition of Icebreakers delivered by DoorDash.